Welcome to Healthy Buzz, the podcast for women who are craving honest answers in a supportive community. Hosted by Brandy Homerding, a certified nutrition therapy practitioner who believes your body isn't broken, but the narrative around women's health is. Each week, we're diving deep into holistic health topics, challenging the one-size-fits-all approach, and empowering you to trust your own informed intuition. Get ready to feel seen, supported, and seriously informed. This is Healthy Buzz, where collaboration meets unfiltered transparency in women's health. Welcome to another episode of Healthy Buzz. Today, I have Rita Utterback of Radiate with Rita to talk all about endometriosis. Rita is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified holistic nutritionist who specializes in helping women ditch Band-Aid approaches to conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, Hashimoto's, chronic gut issues, and more so they can reclaim their life. As a woman who has struggled with endometriosis herself, Rita is able to hold space for other chronic illness warriors while helping them find their own path to healing through root cause work and sustainable living. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you so much, Brandy. I'm super excited to be here.
I am really excited to talk with you about this topic of endometriosis. I feel like with so many things in women's health, this is another one of those areas that people don't really know a whole lot about, don't really know how to approach it. And I'm excited to talk with you, specifically somebody who deals with endometriosis herself. So tell me a little bit more about your journey with endometriosis.
So my journey with endometriosis started in my early 20s, and I'm almost 35 now. So I was 20 when I got diagnosed, but before that, I was just having a lot of gut issues. Those were my first symptoms of endometriosis. A lot of times people think that you have to have super painful periods to have endometriosis, and that's not true. In fact, I didn't have any pelvic pain until later on in my journey, and that's kind of actually what pushed me in the direction of finally getting answers. So I was in college. I had been on the pill for a couple years at that point, and I started developing pretty intense pelvic pain. I went to the doctor. They found an ovarian cyst. They were like, we're going to watch it and see what happens. It didn't get better. So they ended up doing surgery to remove the cyst, and then I still had pelvic pain. It did not get any better. So a year later, I'm dealing with, all of the pain because I was in college and whatever, and I had went to college in a different town, and I came home for the summer and I was like, doc, I'm still having this pain. And I was like, I think I have endometriosis. One of my really good friends has it. I have a lot of the symptoms, and I really think that's what I have going on. And he was like, there's no way you can have it. We just cut you open a year ago. There was nothing in there at the time. So I doubt that's the case. So he sent me to a urologist and a GI doctor to get checked for IBS and interstitial cystitis because I was also having bladder issues at the time. Now I know I was staying in a college dorm that had a lot of mold and was causing a lot of these issues for me. But at the time, I had no idea, but I was having major bladder issues and I was 20 years old. And I'm like, why am I literally just having to get up every 30 minutes to pee? And I would just be dribbling all night long. So I had a lot of that, a lot of GI symptoms. Went to both of those specialists. They diagnosed me with IBS. Then they diagnosed me with IC. But I was still having pelvic pain. My bladder issues had gotten a lot better, but I was still having a lot of pelvic pain, specifically around, I guess, when I would have that ovulation, because like I said, I was on birth control, but then I would have pain leading up to my actual period on birth control. And I don't know, my periods kind of even sucked on birth control. So after, going back to my doctor, I was like, hey, look, I've seen all these other specialists. I'm still having symptoms. Will you please check me out? He decided to do surgery, and he did in fact find endometriosis. So that was the first official surgery that I had for endometriosis. So he removed it. And then I had surgery a couple years later for it again, because I was still having a lot of pain. My pain never really got better after surgery. And the kind of surgery I had back then was ablation surgery. So if you're listening and you have endometriosis or you suspect that you might have it, it's really important to pay attention to what kind of surgery the doctor is going to be offering to you. Back then I had ablation. Ablation is more of a Band-Aid surgery where they kind of just burn the tissue versus actually excising it and removing it in the way they would remove a tumor. So I had two surgeries where they just burn off the tissue, but it does have a pretty high recurrence rate. So after I had that last surgery, I was still having pain. I was on birth control. I did medically induced menopause. I did all sorts of different treatment options, and it wasn't really getting better. until I found Dr. Jolene Brighton and started learning about like, wow, like how I could actually support my body and my hormones and stuff without having to rely on birth control. And honestly, that's when I started to see the biggest shifts in my symptoms, just with changing up my diet. Because up until that point, I mean, I wasn't even eating 3 meals a day, right? Like my life was a mess. I was in nursing school for a little while I was in college, and my life was even more of a mess at that point, just because like you don't do anything in nursing school besides study and sleep. So being on this journey of like trying to manage my hormones and my symptoms naturally, like I saw a tremendous amount of improvements. Now, were things perfect? No, I still had some GI issues and some other little things here and there, like painful intercourse and pain with bowel movements and stuff like that. But for the most part, the rest of my symptoms had gotten so much better. I wasn't having pain around ovulation anymore. I wasn't having brutal pain leading up to my period every month. My periods were no longer wrecking my life. But working with, a functional practitioner really did help me dive into a lot of those gut issues. Because like I was saying, my first symptoms for endo were gut issues. And they are for a lot of endo women. A lot of women that have endo also have gut issues. So it's so important to look at your gut health. But with doing that, that honestly gave me my quality of life back, because I was at a place where I was struggling with so many different food sensitivities and couldn't eat a lot of things, had a lot of like constipation and then diarrhea, a lot of the back and forth. And now I'm in a place where for the most part, my symptoms are well managed on the gut issue side of things, but because I've never really had that surgery for endometriosis, the excision surgery, I am in a place currently where I will be getting surgery in September. So I don't know, by the time this episode drops, I will hopefully have already had it. But I'm super excited for that because one, I really think this will improve my quality of life where I'm at now, because I still do have some of those lingering things like the pain with intercourse and pain with bowel movements and pain with certain movement and things. Like I have some structural stuff going on. The more abdominal surgeries you have, the more scar tissue and adhesions and stuff that can form. And that's often very prevalent with endometriosis anyway. So I'm just really looking forward to that. And then just seeing like where I'll be on my endo journey with that, especially with all the work that I've done up until this point.
Wow. What a journey. It's so many different things compounding together that led to this diagnosis of endometriosis. So can you explain in like simple terms, what is endometriosis?
So endometriosis, and it's so important to get this right, because if you go on Google and Google this, like it's not even correct on there. Endometriosis is a disease in which tissue that is similar to the lining of the uterus. Okay, it's not the lining of the uterus. Similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of the uterus in the abdominal cavity, but it's also been found on the diaphragm. It's also been found in the lungs. It's also been found in the brain. It's also been found in various places in the body. So it's not just localized to the reproductive organs, but every time a woman has her period, it kind of acts the same way that the lining of your uterus does. These lesions will actually kind of thicken and shed, aka bleed, every single month with your period. And that's where these things like scar tissue and adhesion can come up just from having the disease itself, because this is literally happening in your abdominal cavity, right? If you have these lesions that are actively bleeding, right, every month, what's that going to do? There's going to be lots of inflammation. And then the scar tissue, the adhesions, all of that, which can then drive more pain and more issues.
Yeah. So it sounds like these tissues are also responding to like the fluctuations in your hormones as they change throughout your cycle. Why is it so challenging with this for women to get a diagnosis? Because I've heard that like people go years and years of being dismissed and having these things go unanswered. Because like you talk to your doctor and you're like, I think I have endo. And they're like, no, you don't.
I don't think they have an appropriate understanding of what this condition is. Like there are still so many doctors that believe that endometriosis is the lining of the uterus, and that's why they push birth control so hard. They're like, well, if we just stop your period, then you're not going to have any issues, and then we'll stop the growth of endo. And it's like, no, hormones are just one component to endometriosis. Yes, it's a big component, but then there's the immune component, right? Like it's a disease in which your immune system is faulty, right? Like it's allowed for diseased tissue to kind of set up shop in your body, and it's not really able to appropriately respond to it. Your gut health also plays a very big role in that, your liver health and all of that, as we know, impacts hormone balance. But it is a full body disease. Like pelvic floor health is super important to dive into too. And I think it's in medical school, from the conversations that I've had with My friend who's in GYN surgery was telling me that in their schooling, I mean, they're taught like just very, very little information about endometriosis. It's like, okay, endometriosis causes symptoms like this. It is a disease in which the lining of the uterus grows outside the uterus. We treat this with ablation surgery, which is that Band-Aid surgery that I taught you about, and that's it. If you want to become an excision specialist for endometriosis, you have to take like a certification and a specialization in that. That's kind of why at the beginning I was saying if you're going to have surgery, try to find an excision specialist. They are a little bit harder to come by, but they are trained to actually excise and remove that tissue. And they actually understand the disease better. A lot of them will still push birth control and things like Lupron and Orlissa. And there's another one now, which is basically the same thing. These are all GnRH agonists, which basically shut off all your hormones and put you into a menopausal state. And then they'll give you add back therapy, which gives you progestin to give you some hormones, and then you're just like, your body feels kind of crazy. But anyways, for some people it works. For some people, like, so I'm not going to knock it. For me personally, it didn't really work. I'm a little bit sensitive with hormones though. So I think it's just really not fully understanding the disease. The fact that there are still OBGYNs who don't believe excision surgery is a real surgery. And then they don't understand how it impacts the body so much. I can't tell you how many times I've had women in my DMs on Instagram and they're telling me they have these like 5 to 6 centimeter endometriomas, which are basically huge masses caused by endometriosis on their ovaries. And they want to have a baby, but their doctors don't want to operate on it because they say it could affect their fertility. And it's like leaving that there could affect their fertility. But again, the lack of actually understanding how this disease works, how it impacts your body in so many different ways.
Hey, Healthy Buzz listeners. Are you feeling like you're constantly struggling to hit your protein goals? Like, you should be getting more protein for energy, muscle support, and overall well-being, but you're not quite for sure how to make that happen without sacrificing flavor or other important nutrients. I get it. That's why I created the High Protein Power Plan, a delicious and easy to follow 7-day meal plan designed specifically for women who want to effortlessly reach 130 grams of protein or more every single day. Now, this isn't about bland chicken and broccoli. Inside, you're going to find mouth-watering recipes packed with flavor and designed to perfectly balance your macros. Think vibrant salads with protein powerhouses, satisfying bowls packed with flavor and nutrients, and easy dinner ideas that make hitting your goals a breeze without feeling deprived. This plan takes the stress out of high-protein eating and helps you feel your absolute best. Ready to finally unlock the power of high protein without the guesswork? Head on over to bcw.bcolectivewellness.com/high protein recipes to download your high protein power plan today. That's bcw.bcolectivewellness.com/high protein recipes. It's time to nourish your body, feel amazing, and discover how delicious hitting your protein goals truly can be. What are some symptoms of endometriosis? Let's talk about that first, and then we can talk about like how somebody can actually get diagnosed with it.
So the most common symptoms are like period pain, lots of pelvic pain. A lot of times women will feel pelvic pain leading up to their period and even in other points of the menstrual cycle too. A lot of pain with ovulation. Now, not every person that has pain with ovulation has endo, but if it's like really, really, really bad, it's probably a sign of endometriosis. Lots of gut issues, like maybe like around the time you started your period, you started having some pretty gnarly IBS symptoms. Maybe your periods weren't painful, but you had lots of bloat, lots of constipation, diarrhea as a kid, painful intercourse, and other things can cause that, like pelvic floor dysfunction. But that's also associated with endometriosis too. Urinary issues, because women can have endo on their ureters and even their bladder. So urinary frequency, pain with urination. What else? Fertility struggles, back pain, and then even chest pain. If you have it in your chest or on your diaphragm, a lot of people that do have it in these places do have a lot of chest pain too, which is wild. And they'll have a lot of pain with deep breaths, and you don't really think that it could be endometriosis, right? Like it's very wild, and it's not going to show up on an x-ray. So those are just some of the symptoms, but the main ones are typically the period symptoms, the pelvic pain, the bloating, and then the GI symptoms and fertility struggles.
How does one go about getting diagnosed with endometriosis?
So, the most accurate way to get diagnosed is through surgery. They can go in and they can actually take a sample of the tissue itself and send it off to pathology to determine if you have endometriosis. Now, there are a couple newer ways that they're working on trying to help people get a diagnosis that are less invasive. So, there's one blood test they can do called the CA-125. And this can, if elevated, indicate that somebody might have endometriosis, but it can also be indicative of ovarian cancer. But either way, like it's not reliable in the sense that it's also a marker for something else. And sometimes like it will be a false positive. Now, for some people, it's end up, it's positive and then they end up having surgery and then they do find the endometriosis. So that is an option. It's just not the most accurate. And then there are like a handful, I think, of specialists. I know there's one in Canada. There probably are a very few here, surgeons that can do like a special kind of ultrasound that can detect endometriosis. Now, if you have an endometrioma, like you get a regular old ultrasound and they see an endometrioma and you've never been diagnosed with endometriosis, that means that you have endometriosis. That's a cyst that's caused by endo. So oftentimes, like if you do get standard imaging, like an ultrasound or an MRI or a CT scan, you have to have like a mass or something that's large enough to actually show up on the scan, because oftentimes those lesions are very, very small and won't actually make it onto like regular standard ultrasounds.
So the surgery that you're talking about, is it like an open surgery, laparoscopic surgery? What does that surgery entail? And did you have that surgery to get diagnosed?
Laparoscopic. Yes, I did have that. So the 3 abdominal surgeries that I had back then were all laparoscopic, and they just make a couple tiny incisions and then have like a camera and then their 2 little prongs that help them do what they need to do. Now, this one that I'll be having will also be laparoscopic and will also be minimally invasive like the other ones, but it will be a robotic surgery, which is something I've never had done before. And it's a little bit weird to think about, but my OBGYN, who is thebomb.com, she was like, honestly, it allows for more precision with surgery. And I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. But it's just, I don't know, it's just weird whenever somebody tells you like, hey, a robot's going to perform surgery on you. But the Da Vinci is actually very commonly used for endometriosis excision. So if you have endo and you've been looking into surgery, you've probably seen some specialists talk about the Da Vinci. It's pretty commonly used.
Awesome. That sounds intriguing. I'll be interested to see how you're like recovering and everything goes with that. When we think about endometriosis, the symptoms such as like chronic bloat, period pain, chronic endo flares, how are these symptoms actually connected to that endometriosis?
So, depending on where you have these lesions, can kind of depict where you have a lot of pain. And then you have some of these other factors, things like stress, inflammation. Now, when you have endometriosis, you have more mast cells in your body than the average person. If you have more mast cells, you're going to have more histamine, you're going to have more inflammatory chemicals in your body. But specifically histamine, you probably work with people that have endo too, and like you can probably see the histamine connection. We almost all have some sort of histamine issues, whether it's just histamine intolerance or it's mast cell activation syndrome. A lot of times you see histamine in this population. But yeah, so really just like your overall level of inflammation. Like, are you eating a crap ton of like histamine foods? Do you have a lot of stress? Like, are you living in fight or flight? Honestly, most of my histamine intolerant girlies, they're very dysregulated and like, hey, like I'm going to call myself out too. We're always working on things, right? Your gut health, you have certain infections in your gut like H. pylori, SIBO, parasites, all these can also increase histamine, overfilling your histamine bucket. And all this stuff can actually drive a lot of that pain that we feel with endometriosis.
Can you explain a little bit more about like what that histamine and mast cell activation kind of looks like or feels like in somebody's body?
So for somebody that has endo, I'm just going to speak from experience, it can cause a lot of symptoms. So for me, especially because I do have interstitial cystitis, sometimes with certain things, and like I know we've had conversations in the past where I told you my body hates alcohol. Like if I have just one drink, my whole bladder and my whole pelvis will just like instantly within minutes just like light up on fire. So it can cause like immediate pelvic pain, bladder burning, whatever. For some people, they get rashes. For some people, they get like palpitations. Like I have some clients that are like, they struggle with like coffee and like some of, some of those higher histamine things are like, Rita, why am I dizzy from my coffee? I'm like, it's probably got mold in it, but it's also the histamine, right? So everyone's histamine type symptoms can be different, but for a lot of us, it can be the pelvic pain. It can also be anxiety. Histamine can drive a lot of mood issues for people. I think those are like the main ones I see with my peeps. It's usually like, nausea, some GI issues like diarrhea and or constipation. I kind of see a little bit of both too. Those are typically what I see in my peeps that are like actively having like histamine reactions.
Something that I've heard you talk about like can correlate with endometriosis are things like mold or SIBO, other different things kind of manifesting along with this endometriosis. Can you speak a little bit to that and like maybe how those are impacting somebody's health?
Yes. So SIBO specifically.
And SIBO is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth for those listening who may not know what that is.
Yes. And SIBO is actually pretty common with endometriosis. A lot of times when you see endo, you'll also see SIBO. And for people who have recurrent SIBO, it can't hurt you to think about, okay, do they potentially have endometriosis? So kind of like I was saying, if you have these endo lesions in your body, they can create a lot of scar tissue and adhesions. And sometimes these things end up on your bowels. You'll have scar tissue and adhesions on your bowel that impact motility. So if you've got something structural that's making things move through your GI tract a lot slower, this can kind of allow, set the stage for overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. And this can lead to a bunch of nutrient deficiencies, specifically your fat soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, E, and K. And all these are important for like managing inflammation, supporting your thyroid, supporting your immune system, combating period pain. So, having the disease itself can have an impact on your gut health. And then if you have repeated surgeries, that can kind of also put you at risk for SIBO too. One, they blow you up with gas. And then when your body's healing, sometimes, scar tissue can form as a result of that. And then if you have endo lesions themselves on your bowels, they can very much so be hormonally charged and kind of impact like what your gut does throughout the month. So endo itself can lead to SIBO, but SIBO can also kind of worsen endometriosis symptoms. And again, this is why I said your gut health is so important, and why I've been able to do a lot of work with my gut, or with my symptoms over the years is because I have dug deeper into my gut. I did have SIBO. I've had SIBO twice, unfortunately, but I've, worked on that, worked on some other things, and it's really helped to improve my symptoms tremendously. And I see this a lot with my clients as well, but you got to like look at the full picture, right? If you're just sitting here, like, especially if somebody's had surgery and you're just focusing on treating the SIBO, we're not really like addressing some other things, right? Like maybe we're not doing enough visceral massages and stuff like that to kind of, help massage things out that can kind of keep SIBO coming back. Now with mold. So a lot of women that have endo also have been exposed to mold at some point. Now, not everyone, but I see endo and mold overlap a lot. And I've seen people, I've actually worked with a client once who has a history of endometriosis, had it excised, had it removed, was still having pelvic pain. They cut her open. There was no endo, but it was all from the mold that was in her apartment, in her home.
Wow.
We have a lot of histamine receptors in our pelvis. So if, mold and mycotoxins, specifically the toxins that come from mold, can actually increase a lot of histamine symptoms and increase mast cell activation if people do have that. So if we're increasing histamine and you have histamine receptors all over your bladder, your pelvis, and whatever, it can kind of mimic or exacerbate a lot of those symptoms that people have with endometriosis, like the bloat and the pelvic pain. I know whenever I was living in a home with mold, because I've had quite a few mold experiences living in the South. But the last experience where I was having like all the food sensitivities, I mean, it literally was just like affecting me in so many different ways. Like my pelvis was constantly like just inflamed. And getting out of the environment really helped tremendously. Like we really underestimate how impactful mold can be, but it really can cause a lot of symptoms, especially for people who are already like immunocompromised.
I had mold toxicity as well living in Denver, where a lot of people are like, no, it's Denver, it's dry here, there's no mold issues. And there are. Mold can be in any environment. So What are some holistic approaches to managing the symptoms of endometriosis? Because you mentioned some conventional approaches, which include like the birth control pill, you mentioned Lupron. Maybe let's talk about that a little bit first, about how those are suggested as like a first line when it comes to endometriosis and what they're actually doing. And then what is a more holistic approach to that?
Yeah. So the pill and Lupron, those things are very commonly recommended. With birth control, oftentimes doctors will recommend that because they think that it's going to stop the growth of the endometriosis and kind of improve outcome. Yes, for a lot of people, if you have super painful periods, it might make your painful periods go away. If you've got a lot of PMS symptoms, it might make those symptoms go away. But it's not actually addressing the endo. And I've seen and heard of stories of women that have endometriosis that end up with stage 4 endo frozen pelvis, right? Where literally everything is fused together because they're on birth control and all of their symptoms have been masked for literally years. Yeah. And she was like wondering why she couldn't conceive. All of her organs were stuck together, but she didn't know because for 20 plus years, she was on the birth control pill. So again, it might help with symptom relief, but it's not actually doing anything to address the disease. And as we know, there's a lot of different side effects that can come from birth control, which can actually worsen endo in the long run. And that might be a little bit controversial. Sorry, ladies, but it's the truth, right? Like you're taking something that's affecting your gallbladder. You need to be able to absorb healthy fats to manage endo, right? If you're taking something that's down regulating your thyroid, like that's going to play such a big role in your hormones too. So anyways, I could go on forever about that. But then Lupron or Lissa, and then I don't know what the name of the newest one is, but anyways, they all work the same. These basically put you in a menopausal state. So you're not cycling at all. Then they'll give you like add back therapy to give you some hormones so you're not completely menopausal. But some women feel really good because they're not cycling and they're like, okay, no hormones, I'm good. So for some people, these treatments work. Now, my favorite traditional treatment option, if you will, is excision surgery. And I will stand by that forever because even if you do all the holistic stuff, sometimes you still need surgery. In fact, I would still recommend it, especially if you do want to conceive. Because like I'm living proof that you can do all the things, but still need surgery, still need somebody to go in and actually excise the tissue and remove it. So it's not continuing to grow every single time that you have a cycle, essentially. Now, some more of the holistic things, because I think these things are so important, is just overall reducing systemic inflammation. Like that's like the number one thing. And the number one ways to do this is work on addressing like your stress levels. And this isn't just like, okay, girl, you need to chill out and go get your nails did. This is like, are you living your life in fight or flight? Are you literally hitting the ground running first thing in the morning when you wake up? Are you having coffee for breakfast and not eating your first meal of the day till 1 or 2 o'clock? Are you even eating enough food? Are you eating enough protein? Like if you're not eating enough protein in general, but especially with endometriosis, like protein helps your body heal and bounce back from flare-ups. Like when you're sick, you need protein. So if you're not giving your body like that basic ass building block to help you heal, to help reduce inflammation, you're going to have a very, very, very hard time managing it. So getting enough protein, like eating at least 100 grams of protein a day if you're not tracking macros, calories, or don't have any crazy bodybuilding goals. Like that's a good goal to aim for, is at least 100. 30 grams at each meal, maybe 10 or 15 at your snacks. You'll hit that no problem. Making sure you're getting enough sleep. Okay. I know some of us like to act like we can sleep when we're dead, but no, like you need that. You need to sleep like your life depends on it. Okay. You might be young now, but you ain't going to be young forever. Okay. So get your sleep. Right? Like we heal when we're resting and we're sleeping. Outside of some of those foundational things like getting up and moving and like doing a lot of like stretching and mobility, yoga for the hips and the back, because a lot of times the pain that we feel is a lot of just inflammation and tightness that we have in the surrounding muscles from all the inflammation from endo, like your pelvic floor being super tight. That can lead to super tight hips and tight muscles in your back. So if you're working on your pelvic floor, which I'll always be a big advocate of pelvic floor PT, I think that should be a part of everyone's journey with endo. Like it can help so much with a lot of the pain and the tightness that you have in the hips, like I said, glutes, back, etc. Balancing blood sugar, making sure your meals are colorful, well-rounded. I like to take an approach of what can we add into your diet versus take away. A lot of times in the functional realm or even in the traditional realm with endo, they're like low FODMAP, endo diet, cut out gluten, dairy, soy, this, that, whatever. And I'm like, okay, most of my clients really only ever have to cut out gluten because a lot of us do have gluten issues. But like not everybody with endo struggles with dairy. Not everybody struggles with a tomato or an onion, right? Not everybody struggles with soy. And it's like, throwing these like super restrictive diets that people can honestly do more harm than good, especially if it makes you undereat. Especially if you already had a super limited diet and now your diet is super limited, like your gut bacteria, like your gut health is so dependent on you eating a diverse diet, eating lots of color, eating a lot of nutrients. If you're eating the same 5 foods every day, like your gut's not going to like that. And so some more of like the like functional work with somebody type of ways to help improve and manage your endometriosis symptoms is to dig into functional lab testing. I personally love for people that have endo, like I know people love the Dutch test, and the Dutch test can be a great test. It's a hormone test and getting your hormones checked. And there's obviously a time and a place, but I always like to focus on the gut and minerals first because hormonal imbalances and even poor detox oftentimes come down to other things, right? Like your lifestyle, your nutrition, your gut health. If you can't actually absorb any of the amino acids from all that protein that you're eating, you're going to have a hard time metabolizing your estrogen. Like we don't think about how important protein is to help your liver detox and do what it needs to do. But if your liver's not detoxing well, you're not going to be able to reduce and manage your estrogen well. And that's just going to feed the endo. So we have to look at your gut health. We have to look at how you're absorbing your nutrients. Like a lot of times I work with women that have endo and they're like, oh my gosh, my stomach hurts so bad if I eat meat, especially red meat. And that's like, girl, like you don't have stomach acid. Like we literally have got to work on boosting that and get you, absorbing nutrients again so you can feel better, right? So you can actually break down your food so you can eat dairy without dying. Because I promise you, like dairy is not bad, okay? Your gut just does not have what it needs to break dairy down. So I love the GI map for looking at the gut microbiome, looking at how you're digesting your food, how you're metabolizing estrogen. Do you actually have a gluten sensitivity? And again, a lot of my endo girlies do, and it's so sad. And then I also really love the hair tissue mineral analysis test, the HTMA, because it allows us to look at your body's mineral levels. Most women that I work with that have endo have been on birth control for literally ever. Birth control is so depleting of so many vitamins and minerals. They're depleted from having endo itself because when you have diseased tissue chilling in your body and your immune system is constantly responding to it, that's going to cause your body to burn through a lot of minerals. If you're depleted from eating the standard American diet or just barely eating at all or eating a super restrictive diet, that can, worsen and drive your endometriosis symptoms. So looking at your minerals, seeing what you need more support with, seeing if you have a copper imbalance. Copper imbalances are very common in people that have endometriosis, like the high copper, the high stress. All my endo girlies, everybody is so stressed out. They're all type A and they're all perfectionists. And like, look, I'm talking about me too. But it's like literally like we're all the same. But anyways, we need to focus on like your adrenal glands. We need to focus on your thyroid health. We need to focus on your gut health and all these things that really kind of allow your body to support estrogen metabolism, that support inflammation reduction. I have seen some of my clients with the most debilitating of periods. I'm talking periods that make their limbs go numb, periods that make them throw up, just with balancing their blood sugar and getting them eating more food and more diverse meals. Their pain gets better. Not cutting out the dairy, not sitting here having them follow this crazy elimination diet. Like it's literally like the super foundational stuff, but that's how much it matters. Like blood sugar imbalances drive so much inflammation. Okay. And the number one driving factor of endo symptoms is inflammation. If you make any changes today, tomorrow, like start with breakfast, start with at least 30 grams of protein. And I'm not talking about a protein bar or protein shake at every meal. I mean, like I want to see some whole eggs. I want to see some full fat yogurt. If you can tolerate the dairy now, I know not everybody can have dairy yet, but maybe you'll get there. Maybe you'll get there.
But let's talk about this with the eggs. Everybody gets so scared of eggs and everybody's like, oh my gosh, how many eggs do I have to eat? And I'm like, one egg is 6 grams of protein. So to get your 30, you're going to need to eat 5 eggs. No, you're probably not going to want to do that. So this is where we're adding in like the full fat dairy, right? So like some Greek yogurt or maybe some cheese, or maybe you're adding in some type of meat to your egg scramble that you're making. Like, let's get creative. And it's so funny because everybody is like, oh, I cannot eat that many eggs in one sitting until it's a deviled egg. And then all of a sudden people are popping eggs in and they're like, I can't stop eating these deviled eggs. They're so great. So if deviled eggs are going to be a way that you can eat more protein, make those deviled eggs. Eat them.
They're so good. I just
They
love
are
eggs
so
though.
good.
When people don't like eggs or they can't eat eggs, like I genuinely feel sad for you guys. I'm just like, the eggs are so good.
Right.
I love them.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about the low FODMAP diet because I feel like that gets thrown around a lot in traditional medicine when it comes to any type of gut issue, and specifically around endometriosis. And like, what is a low FODMAP diet? What is it addressing? And why should we not be doing this long term?
First of all, I gotta say this and call our people out too. The functional space also loves
Yeah.
the low FODMAP diet. And I get so mad. I'm like, look, I myself have been somebody that's been told to eat like a rabbit and it destroyed my relationship with food and made me sicker. So I will never, ever, 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 ever be that practitioner because it's so shitty and you deserve somebody to hear you. Because most women in our age range are victims or have been victims of diet culture. Okay?
Yes.
So
yes. All you millennial girlies, we see you.
Yep. We really do. We really do. Okay, so with low FODMAP, they believe low FODMAP can help because one, like I was saying earlier, a lot of women that have endo also have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. A lot of the IBS that endo babes have is actually SIBO. So they're like, okay, you're having all this bloat, you're having these IBS symptoms, just do low FODMAP. This will help reduce gas, will reduce a lot of that bloat. So we have these foods that are higher in FODMAP. So your onions, your garlic, the list is actually
watermelon, asparagus, blackberries.
Yeah, like beans, like literally everything is on that list. Mm-hmm. So they're like, okay, if you starve yourself of all these fibrous foods, then you won't have any issues. But we need fiber to feed our good gut bacteria. Like fiber actually is what allows the good gut bacteria that supports our immune system to grow, to thrive, to flourish. So doing this, like especially like long term, can actually worsen your gut issues. It can basically wipe out all your good little gut bacteria. They're gonna starve out. They're gonna starve out. You know, I've had clients. I just very few because oftentimes we don't really need to do that. But I had one client and she was in a home with mold. Surprise, surprise. But she felt the best whenever she did low FODMAP, and she was like, "Girl, like I don't even care for the sake." I was just like, "I'm not even worried about my relationship with food right now. I'm just tired of feeling like crap." And she did it, and it worked. But after that, like it took time. We had to like work on slowly reintroducing fiber because if you go from no fiber to a lot of fiber, it can really wreck your gut. But anyway, so when you do that, you starve those good gut bacteria. It can definitely worsen a lot of your symptoms. So I think a lot of times with SIBO, they're just like, okay, let's treat this infection. But SIBO is always a secondary condition. Okay, it's not a standalone issue. You got SIBO because you had low stomach acid from H. pylori, right? If you don't have enough stomach acid, that's going to affect motility. A bunch of bacteria is going to get into places it's not supposed to. Where you have endometriosis, right? We talked about the scar tissue. We talked about adhesions in previous surgery. So it's like if you're not addressing these things and you're just treating the SIBO can just keep coming back.
You can throw as many FODMAP diets at it. It's never going to address the root cause.
It's never going to address. And girl, you're going to be miserable doing it. Okay, literally one of my newest clients came to me from a naturopath, low FODMAP, and she was like, girl, this is so miserable. She's like, it's helping, but I'm like depressed. And I was like, girl, we got options, I promise. And just with us focusing on a hair tissue mineral analysis test, you know, and really focusing on supporting her minerals and really focusing on blood sugar and all this, her bloat is now gone. Like literally a week into her protocols the same protocols that she did with her naturopath that were not working. They started working. She's like, my bloat's gone. I feel really good. And I'm just like, literally just, this is why with SIBO, you can't just be like, okay, just throw a supplement at it, right? It's like, we got to address all the other pieces of the puzzle first, or you just go keep getting it over and over. And those antibiotics that the traditional providers will prescribe you, I'm pretty sure insurance doesn't cover it. It's not cheap. Was it rifaxin or something, whatever?
Rifaxin?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
No. And still, the stomach acid issue, whether it's H. pylori or it's just you are eating in a stressed out state every fucking day. Sit down, engage your senses, chew your food, kind of like not chug water. Diet culture told us chug all your water at mealtime because then it's going to make you full and then you're not going to eat as much. No, stop doing that. Stop doing that.
Stop it.
we can have a little water at meals, but we don't want to chug our water. That's going to dilute our stomach acid too. So chew your damn food. Chew your damn food. I give my
Definitely.
clients assignments. I'm like, I need your mealtime to take 20 minutes. They'll be like, it takes me 10 minutes to eat. I'm like, nope, I need you to double. Put your
Are
fork
you
down.
even chewing?
Right. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Okay, so with women who are dealing with endometriosis, they can also be dealing with some fatigue or weight loss resistance. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Something that so many people have all the time that they don't even remember that, hey, this is a symptom. Fatigue is a symptom, not just like I'm tired and I didn't sleep well, but it is a symptom. Your body's telling you something. So what are some like nutritional lifestyle changes that can impact their energy levels and also this weight loss resistance that so many millennial women are here like struggling with every day?
Yeah, it's real. So minerals, 20 out of 10, like I was saying earlier, if with endo, we burn through minerals so much more rapidly just from having diseased tissue in our bodies and like the fact that that keeps your immune system in overdrive. So being depleted is going to leave you so, I mean, right, like you're literally running on E. So working on minerals, getting an HTMA test done, working on at least adding high quality salt to your food. Maybe you do some Redmond's real salt. Maybe you do Celtic sea salt.
Stop being scared of salt. Stop
I
being scared of eggs.
know.
Stop
Oh
being
my
scared of salt.
God. I talk to some of my clients and they're like, I don't salt my food. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because I like it like this. I'm like, you like it bland? Girlfriend, like it's not just about flavor, it's about nourishment. And if you're starting to eat healthy, like you go from eating the standard American diet to a healthy diet, girl, you ain't getting no sodium. So we need you to start eating some salt because you will literally, oh my God. So yeah, we're getting an HTMA, adding some high quality salt, trying to incorporate more potassium rich foods into your life, like coconut water, potatoes.
Avocado.
I can't stress this enough. Avocado, watermelon. I think it's still the season for watermelon.
Yep.
You know, magnesium rich foods, calcium rich foods. Like those are the 4 macro minerals. So working on supporting those can be super helpful through your food. Getting outside, getting some sunshine can also really help with energy. Like sometimes I get so tired. And then sometimes, I don't know, I feel like a plant. I go outside and then I'm like, and I feel like it recharges me a little bit. Even if I'm just sitting out there and not like going for like a long walk or anything, just being outside can help a lot. Now, the weight loss resistance thing, and this can also help with fatigue too, is diving into your gut health, right? So yes, working on minerals can help your energy and can also help with weight loss resistance because sometimes your mineral imbalances, like low potassium and low magnesium, can actually impact your blood sugar, which can make it more challenging to lose weight. So addressing minerals, but also your gut health. Do you have certain strains of good gut bacteria in your gut that help to combat against insulin resistance? Are you able to absorb the healthy fats and the protein and stuff from your diet that actually help to balance your blood sugar? You know, we can do all the things, but absorption also plays such a big role. And sometimes I see a lot of my women with endo, they're not absorbing well. So they're doing all the things and then they're puffy and inflamed all the time. Or they're like, well, Rita, like, why do I feel like I'm lifting weights and I feel like I'm not seeing muscle, or I feel like I'm not burning fat as well? And it's like, your body is constantly like, I don't want to say in a catabolic state, but if you're like under eating and you have endo and you're undernourished, like you kind of are in that catabolic state. And you need to focus on making sure you're eating enough, you're eating really well balanced meals, working on addressing your gut health and addressing other sources of inflammation that can also make weight loss challenging through affecting hormones. You know, obviously hormones are one piece of it, but you know, unless we're kind of like perimenopausal or menopausal, there's usually other things that are contributing to those hormonal imbalances that we have. But specifically with estrogen, I didn't mention this earlier, with endometriosis, like endo actually makes its own estrogen too.
Oh, that's cute.
So that's fun. It is cute, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool. So you're just going to go and make your own estrogen that doesn't even always show up on like Dutch tests and testing and stuff. So it's fun. But anyway, so supporting all these other things, making sure you're having regular bowel movements, working on your gut health. Like I cannot stress the importance of how important that is for reducing inflammation and just supporting your body as a whole with endo.
Yes. And to add to that too, like the stress component, if you are stressed out all day long, your body is not going to lose weight. We got to run away from whatever is chasing us right now. And so it's going to conserve and store all that energy so that you can run from the thing that's threatening your life instead of actually burning it. And so that goes into like, how are you moving your body? Are you moving your body in a high intensity workout 5 days a week? You need to
Or
rest.
are you doing a mix of maybe some moderate strength training and Pilates or yoga or something like that? Like, obviously, I'm not saying that you can't lift heavy and, maybe do a little bit of hit here and there with endo, but if you have endo, you're trying to lose weight, you're trying to reduce inflammation, you're doing hit cardio all the time, or you're literally at the gym looking at your watch or whatever, and you're not going to leave until you hit a certain amount of calories, baby girl. We out here focus on the wrong things. Right? Like, this is not going to help you lose the weight in the way that you think it is, unfortunately. So, yeah, how you move also matters.
Can we touch on, to kind of wrap this up, but can you touch on how there needs to be special considerations with endometriosis in conception? Because I know that infertility can be a big part of an endo journey. And how do you help support women who are wanting to conceive through their endo journey?
Yes, this is a really good question. So if people know that they have endo, like, I always have a conversation about surgery with them, because I'll always be a big advocate of the fact that we need both realms of medicine for endo. Like, yes, we can do a lot naturally, but I still think, especially if you've been told you have kissing ovaries or you have this endometrioma, 20 out of 10, find a surgeon that will take you seriously and won't be too scared to operate on you for the sake of worsening your fertility, and understands that not addressing these things can affect your fertility and you deserve the best outcome possible. And then also, a lot of the other stuff that we work on that can help to support fertility that women with endo aren't being talked to about. Like, yes, maybe you're told to take birth control until it's time to have a baby to preserve your fertility. Yes, they tell you that.
It's not how that works.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. Then there's, the surgery piece of things, but also working on balancing your blood sugar, right? If your blood sugar is in a better spot, your insulin's in a better spot, this is going to help better support ovulation, which is where we make progesterone. Okay. Working on your gut health, making sure you're actually able to absorb all the nutrients from the healthy food that you're eating, all the minerals and nutrients from this expensive prenatal that you're buying, right? Like, I think it's so important if you do have endo to dig deeper. And I think if people do have the means to work with a functional practitioner, if they know they have endo, 20 out of 10 do it, because the longer you stay married to the traditional medical model for endo, especially with fertility in general, the more you will struggle. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to throw that juju out there into the universe. I'm just keeping it real with you, because they will let you spend $10,000 to $15,000 per round of IVF without even once talking to you about your gut health, without even once talking to you about your blood sugar, without talking to you about so many things that we can do to manage endo. They're like, okay, well, you have endo, we have to jump straight to IVF. And we have to take the birth control until that exact moment to preserve your fertility. And then we'll dive in. And it's just like, we have options. Like, there's a lot we can do. So I think just like proper education and working with somebody who understands endometriosis, who understands like how to tackle it from a functional and a holistic standpoint, in addition to the surgery piece, I think it's really important to have a multidisciplinary team. Pelvic floor physical therapy, right? Working on helping to support better blood flow to your pelvis. A lot of women that have endo have very limited, like, I want to say limited, but they already struggle with a lot. Yes. And I was reading something yesterday that was talking about people like who have endo and who have Ehlers-Danlos. They can have pelvic venous issues where they have like a lot of blood pooling in certain places or not, right? Which, if you don't have a lot of blood flowing to your reproductive organs, that in of itself can impact fertility. So I think it's really important to kind of like look at fertility, especially with endometriosis, from like a full body standpoint. This whole just IVF, just birth control thing is not enough. You deserve so much more than that.
Those are beautiful words for everybody to listen to and advocate for yourself. Is there anything else that you want the listeners to know when it comes to endometriosis and advocating or supporting your body?
I think I would just want to leave y'all with this. If you have endometriosis, like you just got diagnosed or you suspect you do, I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. It's quite literally probably one of the most challenging things that you've ever endured. But our traditional medical model will paint this narrative that you're always going to be sick, you're never going to get better, you'll probably never conceive. And I think it puts a lot of fear in people's minds. Like, I talk to women, they're like literally 24, and they're like, what if I can never conceive because I have endo? And it's like, girl, like, we have so much we can even do before we get to that point, right? If you really want to support your body and give yourself that best outcome. So just understand there's a lot more within our control and power than we've been led to believe. And I know sometimes that can be hard to hear because, I don't mean it in the sense that you're doing it to yourself, but I think if we don't really know what we can do to help ourselves, right, we're not going to be able to do those things. And I just want you to know that you do have options. It doesn't just have to be surgery and that's it. It doesn't have to be surgery and then immediately get on birth control and shut all your hormones off and live in medically induced menopause when you're 25 years old. Like, you have options. So please, do not stop advocating for yourself and find you a provider that will totally hear you out and respect your wishes and what you want for your treatment.
I love that. And find yourself a practitioner like Rita who can help you have those conversations to advocate for your health and wellness. So Rita, where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
So you guys can connect with me on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time at Radiate_with Rita. And then my website is www.radiatewithrita.com. And I have an old podcast that has been retired. But if you're somebody that does have endo, I have 2 or 3 years worth of where I brought people on during Endo Awareness Month and brought different specialists on that have endo to share their journey. So if you go to the link in my bio, you can actually scroll down to the bottom and access my podcast and listen into those endo episodes and learn a little bit more.
What a great resource. Rita also has for you a Fix Your Period blueprint that she has made available. I'll put the link to that in the show notes here so you can connect with her that way as well. Well, Rita, this was a really great conversation. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Brandy. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Healthy Buzz. I hope this conversation has left you feeling seen, supported, and ready to take the next step in your health journey. Love what you heard? Make sure you subscribe to Healthy Buzz so you never miss an honest conversation. And if you found this valuable, please take a moment to leave a review. I truly appreciate it. For exclusive weekly tips and holistic strategies, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Remember, this isn't just nutrition, it's permission to trust your body. I'll catch you on the next episode of Healthy Buzz.